This video is sponsored by Topps MLB Bunt. Topps Bunt is an officially licensed MLB card trading app that's running a special Halloween set through November 19th. Don't miss out on these spooky exclusives. Download Topps MLB Bunt for free using my link in the description. Aw heck, it's the coronavirus season, y'all. It's the coronavirus season. What should we do during this coronavirus season? I know, how about not immediately get coronavirus? Hey there, not sure if you noticed, but the 2020 Miami Marlins were a playoff team. Yeah, I know. I had my doubts too, but you can look it up yourself on the World Wide Web. Another thing you might see on the World Wide Web is that a lot of people have been getting sick this year. Have you seen this? It's a whole ordeal, and that has made it difficult to play sports. But the Marlins played sports, and they won. They won pandemic baseball. Now, by the time this video comes out, we'll have a new World Series champion. I'll put their logo here. Ah, I knew it. I totally called that one. But those guys didn't do it like the Miami Marlins. They didn't have a lousy roster coming into the season. They didn't see that bad roster immediately become worse due to a massive coronavirus outbreak, and they certainly didn't build a bullpen from scratch, allow 29 runs in a game, and call up every possible prospect in a mad dash to win despite every law of nature saying they shouldn't. That was the Miami Marlins. Well, how did we get here? After the 2017 season, a group led by businessman Bruce Sherman bought the Miami Marlins from deeply beloved, respected, and cherished owner Jeffrey Loria. Everyone adores this guy and definitely doesn't hate his guts. By design, new Marlins CEO Derek Jeter became the most visible owner of the ball club, but his actual share of the team is dwarfed by Sherman's. What commenced was the fire sale to end all fire sales. Reigning MVP Giancarlo Stanton was traded to the Yankees for, well, not having to pay Giancarlo Stanton. Marcell Ozuna was traded for a package of prospects that included current Marlins starter Sandy Alcantara, but neither of them turned out to be the biggest deals. The most important transaction from this period remains the trade of future MVP Christian Yelich to the Brewers for a prospect package that is yet to pay big league dividends. The Marlins' existence has been defined by fire sales such as this one. Both their World Series teams were quickly dismantled. Yet, the greatest loss experienced by the franchise still remains the deceased ace pitcher, Jose Fernandez. He was likely the missing piece for a great Marlins team that never materialized. The 2018 Marlins lost 98 games and completed the team's full teardown by trading JT Realmuto for Sixto Sanchez that offseason. The new regime was so dedicated to rebuilding that they also traded first-year big leaguers for low minors prospects. They traded Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm, questionable. They traded Nick Anderson for Ryan Stanek and Jesus Sanchez, highly questionable. Don't trade with the Rays, just don't do it. The Marlins came into spring as a team with low expectations, as they were projected to lose 94 games and finish last in the National League East. Instead of cheering on a winning ball club, resilient Marlins fans were likely going to focus on individual player development. Maybe catcher Jorge Alfaro or pitcher Pablo Lopez would take a step forward. Or maybe a top prospect would emerge during the minor league season. That minor league season never happened. The world was flipped on its head as winter turned to spring. Rudy Gobert touched some microphones, and the Marlins entered a new shortened season with tangible playoff hopes. A 60-game season with 16 playoff teams gave them a 9.2% chance of reaching the postseason, compared to just 0.2% for the normal format. The pandemic had become a weird ally to the Marlins, but it was about to betray them and jeopardize the entire season. The Fish opened 2020 by taking 2 out of 3 against the Phillies. Then it all came to a screeching halt. Positive test after positive test came rolling in, not for performance-enhancing drugs, but for the novel coronavirus. The Marlins season was suspended with 18 players and 2 coaches contracting COVID-19. That's nearly an entire ball club knocked out of commission. That such a massive outbreak occurred so early in the season called into question the very idea of playing baseball in 2020. MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred warned the Players Association that the season was at risk once the St. Louis Cardinals experienced an outbreak of their own. It was theorized that the Marlins had initially contracted coronavirus as a result of risky personal choices, with players failing to follow protocols during their preseason trip to Atlanta. CEO Derek Jeter stated that the Marlins hadn't hit the bars or clubs, but that players had let their guard down in group settings. With 18 players still sidelined and no new positive tests, the league allowed the Marlins to return to action. But they had just a few days to build a brand new ball club on the fly. Their bullpen was hit hardest by the outbreak, with 8 of 12 relievers no longer available. So the Marlins searched high and low for any pitcher with a pulse. They traded cash to Cleveland for James Hoyt, who went on to have a great season. They traded for Richard Blyer, a man who refuses to strike anyone out, yet still remains effective. They signed converted outfielder Brett Eibner from Indie Ball. Seriously, they signed not one, but 2 pitchers named Josh Smith, and they signed the ambidextrous Pat Venditti because, well, that's like having 2 pitchers, right? We've got this, no worries. Another addition with a unique story was infielder Eddie Alvarez. He made his MLB debut with the 2020 Marlins at age 30, but he's no stranger to sports competition at the highest level. Alvarez represented the United States at the 2014 Winter Olympics as a short track speed skater. After 8 days without playing, these ragtag Marlins now face the dawning prospect of 57 games in 54 days. Any stoppage, no matter how brief, would tank their chances of even finishing the schedule. Thankfully, not only did the Marlins manage to play their remaining 57 games, they also won quite a few of them. While much of their A team was still recovering from the virus, the B team carried on with the Marlins season by returning to play on August 4th. On August 6th, they started a pretty grim lineup against the Orioles and lived to tell the tale. Brian Anderson, who has long been the engine of the rebuilding Marlins, drove in 3 runs, and reliever Mike Morin pitched 2 perfect innings, grabbing the win. They played the Mets the next day, and the bullpen came up huge again. COVID call-up Nick Vincent recorded the last 5 outs of a 1-run win. The Marlins managed to stay afloat with a team full of replacement players, winning 7 and losing 8 before anyone with a positive test could return to action. And when they did return, the Marlins took off. They won 5 of their next 7 thanks to contributions from shortstop Miguel Rojas. If Anderson is the engine of the rebuilding Marlins, Rojas is the heart, and he put together an amazing, albeit brief season of 40 games. He's also a better defender than Derek Jeter ever was. I'm so sorry, I can't help myself. With the fish streaking, they morphed into something they hadn't been in a long time: trade deadline buyers. They acquired Starling Marte from the D-backs, a move that added legitimate star power to a team greatly lacking in name recognition. The key stretch of the 2020 Marlins season came against a divisional rival. Remember when their season was put on pause due to the coronavirus outbreak? Miami had played Philadelphia on opening weekend, meaning that the Phillies too had to pause their season due to possible exposure. Like the Marlins, they were playing catch-up to complete their 60-game schedule on time. This came to a head with the Marlins and Phillies playing 7 games against each other in just 5 days. Game 1 featured a late-inning battle between trade deadline acquisitions Starling Marte and Brandon Workman. Marte was victorious, tying the game with a bases-clearing double. Jorge Alfaro went on to walk off Workman in the 9th. It was a standard loss for the 2020 Phillies, who sported the worst bullpen ERA since integration. Over 7, goodness gracious, over 7 ERA. This was an ugly series for Philadelphia. Imagine you're JT Realmuto. You were traded from the hapless Marlins to the seemingly up-and-coming Phillies, only to watch your current squad get carved up by the pitching prospect you were swapped for. Miami took 5 of 7 from Philadelphia, greatly improving their playoff chances in the process. This series began the burial process for the Phillies, who failed to reach the postseason, while the Marlins automatically qualified with the number 2 spot in the National League East. Here's the thing though, and I have to be very careful with my words here. I don't really believe that the 2020 Marlins were a good baseball team, but maybe that's just part of their magic. The 2020 Miami Marlins didn't have the trappings of a good baseball team. Sure, they won more games than they lost, but a closer look at their numbers shows a discrepancy between theoretical and actual success. For example, they allowed 304 runs while scoring just 263. A team with such a run differential would be expected to win just 43% of their games, implying that the Marlins would go 69-93 over a full 162-game season. Even if you completely remove their blowout 29-9 loss to the Braves, they would have still projected to win just 75 games. The Marlins embraced a bottom-feeder mentality in terms of wins above replacement as well. Their players generated significantly less batting and pitching WAR compared to the other 15 playoff teams. Now I know we're looking at very advanced metrics here, like WAR, or, how many runs they scored and allowed, very advanced I know, but those nerd numbers can't account for how gritty the Marlins were. They led the league in playing the game the right way. The Padres finished last, shame on them. All things considered, it's hard to imagine this Marlins team making the postseason in a format with 162 games and 10 playoff spots. Those extra games help separate the wheat from the chaff. That's why I believe smaller sample sizes demand an emphasis on peripheral stats, because surface level numbers can be quite misleading over 60 games. Some of the Marlins' success can be attributed to organizational fortitude. Their front office stayed active, making 30 transactions alone on August 4th. They also jumped on the opportunity to trade for Starling Marte and called up 8 of their top 11 prospects. The final quirk of the 2020 season that allowed the Marlins to succeed was their performance in 7-inning doubleheaders. They played in 14 such games in a mad dash to finish their schedule. That's nearly a quarter of their season, yet they went 10-4 in those abbreviated doubleheaders. It was a great format for a team whose pitching depth was pushed to the limit. And they weren't done winning yet. With their ticket to October punched for the first time since 2003, the Marlins traveled to Wrigley Field to take on the Cubs in a best-of-3 Wildcards series. The Cubs were antithetical to the Marlins in many ways. They won their division, they had recent franchise success, including their 2016 World Series victory, and they had star players with name-brand value that even the most casual baseball fans would be familiar with, like Javi Baez and Chris Bryant. But the Marlins straight up outplayed them. Their Game 1 victory was secured thanks to a 3-run home run from Corey Dickerson. In Game 2, Sixto Sanchez pitched 5 scoreless innings, and closer Brandon Kinsler picked up the save. The Marlins were through to the next round, making them 7-0 all-time in playoff series. They were matched with the Braves in the NLDS, a team that, once again, dropped 29 on them in the regular season. The Fish had some fight, as they did more damage to Max Fried than any team did all season, but Atlanta's offense was too much to overcome. They were swept. Still, they made it farther than they had any right to. The Marlins outperformed the defending champion Nationals and lost in the same round as the Yankees. That's absurd. Don Mattingly may very well win National League Manager of the Year as a result. This is a season that shouldn't be forgotten, but it's also one that shouldn't happen again. If MLB sticks with it, the 16-team playoff will do more competitive harm than good. Think about it this way. The 2019 Texas Rangers would have reached the postseason with 16 playoff spots. I'm sorry, Lance Lynn. I'm sorry, Jeff Mathis. That just was not a playoff quality team. For the 2020 Marlins, there's also a complicated legacy of self-imposed adversity. The biggest obstacle they faced was the early season coronavirus outbreak, but that one's on them if it was avoidable. It reminds me of Tennessee Titan Taylor Luan walking triumphantly off the field after his team broke protocol and experienced a COVID outbreak.
They hated. They were angry at us. They thought we did everything wrong. Don't put us in adversity.
You don't automatically become cool underdogs for shooting yourself in the foot. The Marlins were cool because they won with nobodies, not because of the circumstances that made them play with so many nobodies in the first place. That's why the 2020 Marlins, while a story worth appreciating, are hopefully an anomaly. Still, there's no denying the mark they left on the game. Years from now, when we tell the story of this bizarre season, we'll end with the World Series champions proudly hoisting the Just a Piece of Metal Commissioner's Trophy. But we'll have to start with the Miami Marlins. This episode of Baseball Bits was brought to you by Topps MLB Bunt. Topps MLB Bunt is a baseball card app that allows you to rip open packs featuring your favorite players as well as trade with baseball fans around the world. The app gives out constant freebies. You can spin the wheel multiple times a day to win guaranteed prizes, finish a collection, and you'll also unlock a special reward card. Topps is currently running a unique Halloween card set, and it's only available through November 19th. I've already unpacked super rare cards featuring Shane Bieber, Mike Yastrzemski, and Zach Gallen. You can install Topps MLB Bunt using my link in the description.